When I was a young boy, my mother was traditionally Christian. You know, my whole family was for many generations, but they were never really like into church, if we can say that. And around 7 years old, my mom started looking for Jesus, and she found him, and we started attending a Baptist church in Guelph, Ontario, where I was born and raised. And, you know, she dove right in. She was part of the worship team. She did Bible studies at the house. And we were regular churchgoers for several years, probably till I was about 11 when my mother passed away. And at that point, we moved here to live with my dad. And I never really went to church again after that. I was pretty angry and upset with God. You know, I was mad at him for taking her from me. As I grew up and went through my teen and early 20s, you know, I tried to fill that void in my life with like drugs and alcohol and petty crime and just stupid stuff. And as I got older, I started to try and be a better person. And I never really had a objection to going to church. It was just, it was not really, it wasn't church, you know, it was just a place that I went to. It was just a time out of the day. It was go and sit in a uncomfortable chair and take a nap. When COVID came, you know, it was a hard time because there was no church. Naturally, in the life that I was living at that time, where drugs and alcohol and partying were really my only avenue of escape, you know, that naturally ramped up. You know, it resulted in just a lot of nights asking myself, what am I doing? And a lot of mornings, you know, asking myself, what is the purpose in life? We had just had a party at our house because, you know, you weren't allowed to have people over, but we had a couple friends over and we were drinking heavily. In my drunken stupor, I just picked a fight with my wife that, you know, resulted in her leaving and all my kids, you know, crying in terror because of my behavior. And that night, I fell to my knees and I prayed for the first time. And for the first time, I meant it. I said, God, I don't know if you're actually real or not, but if you are, do something with my life. The next morning when I woke up, I was different. You know, God had changed me in that moment. He took some of my vices away from me instantly that night. I had struggled to quit smoking I was smoking for 25 years, and overnight, smoking was gone. I didn't want to get high anymore either. I didn't feel the need to pick up a bottle. I still had that peace, even though, you know, my wife wasn't there still, and my kids were still kind of wary of being around me. And yeah, that was the moment that Christ came to me, picked me up, and haven't been the same.
My life before Christ, it was me. I was the most important. I was very selfish. I always pursued my own happiness. I always put myself before even my children, before my husband, before God. I wanted to make sure that my needs were met before everybody else's needs were met. During COVID, it was a bad time, I'm sure, for everyone. And I was turning to God to find my happiness, I guess, to find a better life. I felt like there was more meaning to life than what was going on in the world. So I started reading my Bible and I dove into praying the rosary. As a Catholic, that's what they do. They pray the rosary, and it took me about 45 minutes a day, and I was doing that faithfully for a few months. And then one day after I had set up to pray my rosary, I would always put music on and I'd have my phone open to the Stations of the Cross. You would meditate on the Stations of the Cross as you prayed the rosary. And I had been asking a lot of questions beforehand because things just weren't adding up to me with what I was praying with the rosary. And then that was it. Jesus told me to pray to him, and I stopped praying the rosary right there. I ran out of my room and I was so overwhelmed with the Holy Spirit. I called my dad and I was like, Dad, I need to go on the mountain and tell everyone that Jesus is the Lord. And it's never been the same since.
Well, by God's grace, my wife was saved within a couple of days of me as well. We both immediately started hungering for a church. We had dove more deep into our Bibles at that point, but something inside of us was saying that we needed to be with God's people.
When I actually had no idea Harvest existed until I was saved. And it was through a friend that had been attending services here in the parking lot. You guys were just opening again, and she told us that we had to come check out this church.
She had told my wife that, there was this church out in South Windsor where things were normal, where they don't mask and they don't restrict the amount of people there, and they'll shake your hand and smile and talk to you face to face. My wife was like, my friend told us about this church, we gotta go, we gotta check it out. And immediately my first thought is like, well, political sphere is crazy right now, so this church is probably just full of a bunch of hooligans that just want to fight the power, and they don't actually care about God, and it's just it's just a protest building. And my wife felt completely opposite, of course, and she encouraged me, I'll say encouraged me to go, and after much discussion, we decided to go. And upon arrival, it was exactly like my friends had told us, that I walked in the building and somebody shook my hand and a dude hugged me, and I almost started crying right there because it had been so long since we had human contact in that way, We came in and we sat over there in the back row. And I'll never forget it. I walked in and the worship team was just on fire, and every single person in the building was just worshiping God, like legit worship, I started bawling. I couldn't stop crying. I was like, this is it. And we sat down, and then Pastor Aaron came on stage, and it's funny, I don't even remember what he was preaching on. I wasn't really sure what to think because this guy came out and he didn't look like what I was used to. He walked up, just a regular looking guy, but then he opened his Bible and he started to just preach the word. And I opened my Bible on my phone and I'm following him along, and I'm like mind blown because this guy is actually preaching the Bible and he's not adding something else. And he's not using it to tell his own story. And then that's the moment. That's the moment we said that this was our church.
It just felt right. There wasn't anything that felt off. There wasn't anything that felt wrong. I felt like this was home. I felt like I was at home here right away.
Upon coming to Harvest and deciding to stay, just like the Holy Spirit had given us a hunger to go to church and be around God's people, He also gave me a hunger to plug in. And as soon as we got ministry partnership, we signed up to serve. I didn't even know where to serve. In fact, I had no preference. I had no idea. I just knew I had to serve, and I started asking around, and I pretty much just asked the church, like, where do I need to serve? Where do you guys need me to go? And at the time, again, with the amount of people coming, it was in parking.
I jumped in with 2 feet. I started serving on the greeting team. And then about a year ago, I was asked to join the jail ministry. And it's been quite a year. It gives new meaning to being the light in the darkness. They've all been a blessing to me, and I hope and pray that I've been a blessing to those ministries. So if I had to tell somebody that was on the fence, I would say that life without God has no purpose, and life without purpose has no meaning. And Christ gives us that purpose, and that is to love Him and love others.
Christ is worthy. Christ is the most worthy. God will take care of you. He will deal bountifully with you. There's nothing you can lose by going all in.